Hello, everyone. Welcome to our lesson number 6 of our series of lectures titled Perfect Harmony, the Torah Blueprint for Humanity's Partnership with Hashem in the Scientific Age. As always, I will be happy to hear from you. My email appears below. And as always, I stress the importance of following these lessons in the order that they appear. Each lesson builds upon the previous material that we discussed. And as always, I'm showing this slide, the goals of these lessons, and the tools at our disposal. So let's start with a quick review of our previous lesson. We began to study the first verse of the Torah, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. And we looked at 3 fundamental rules of Torah study. These 3 rules and other rules which we will learn are usually not accounted for when translating the Torah. This is a major reason why these translations are misguiding. They simply do not convey the main messages of the Torah. And this is a major source of the confusion and misconceptions that arise when attempting to understand Hashem's messages as relayed to us through the Torah. So we started our study of the Torah itself and looked at the first word of the first chapter of Genesis. The first word is Bereshit, which can mean first event in terms of importance or first event in time. Now, all of the translations pick, just about all the translations pick the second option, first event in time. However, as we explained, the Torah is not a history book. Its messages go much deeper, much like the structure of an onion, multi-layered with concentric layers. The true messages are revealed. The true messages of the Torah are revealed when we make the effort to dig deeper. So after some thought and implementation of the 3 rules of Torah study that we looked at, we realized that what this newspaper boy is screaming cannot be the main headline of the Torah. The Torah is not emphasizing the historical order of how things unfolded. We showed that it is this newspaper boy who is selling the better newspaper. His headline is the major news. Hashem created everything through the process of foremost importance. This process is based upon wisdom, intelligence from the Torah. So, the translation that gets to the essence of the first word is the one that stresses the importance, the foremost importance of this initial creation process through the process of foremost importance. It is not a simple statement of history in the beginning. Okay, and then we looked at how rules number 3 and number 2 are applied. I used when applying them to the first word Bereshit. And looking right now at rule number 2, quickly reviewing what we saw, we looked at all the homonyms of the word Bereshit and its derivatives in the Torah. And we realized when we went through these other instances that Bereshit is a special process. It is due to wisdom, intelligence, information, and the Torah itself. Then we went back to Rambam's triangle and filled in the upper left vertex with the authentic explanation of the oral Torah. We also looked at what scientists say about this process, as shown in the bottom point of the triangle. And as we explained in our previous lesson, science does not have the tools to describe the actual Big Bang event, since physical reality as we know it did not exist at this initial event. However, some scientists have suggested that the basic element of reality before the emergence of physical entities such as time, space, and matter, the most fundamental element of reality is what they called information. This in itself is a fascinating suggestion which appears to be harmonious with the Torah message. In the meantime, we leave this as a possible scientific explanation that has not yet been proven. And so these legs of the triangle are left as dashed lines. Now, there's a lot more to say about this first word of the Torah, but let's move ahead for now and look now at the second word of the first verse. The second word is bara. The usual translation is created. Let's start by looking at Rambam's triangle for this word. So we set up two vertices of the triangle as shown with this connection between them. Here's the Torah text, and here is the principle of faith as we are taught through the oral Torah. And the principle of faith that we are taught is that bara means creation of something from nothing. Or in Hebrew, this is known as yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. Now the question is, what did our sages mean by the word something, and what did they mean by the word nothing? Well, we already saw in our previous lessons that the word nothing cannot be taken literally to mean a state of total emptiness, total zero. Since we learned that the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, is teaching us that the creation did not emerge from nothing. It emerged from something of foremost importance: wisdom, intelligence, information, the Torah itself. So what did our sages mean when they said that the creation emerged from nothing? They mean that it emerged from a state which had none of the elements of our recognizable reality. It did not have the entities composed of matter because matter was created. In addition, the pre-creation state also did not have other types of entities that were not composed of matter, such as laws of physics, forces of nature, energy, time, and other non-matter entities. All of this was also created. So what was there initially? There was Torah-based wisdom and intelligence, and a plan based on this infinite wisdom and intelligence. Okay, so we can start to appreciate what is the nothing from which the creation emerged. The next question is, what did they mean by the word something when they said something from nothing? So we will answer this question as we move ahead in our lessons and we get to the next words of the first verse of Bereshit. Now, how about the third vertex, which would be the scientific principle and which would allow us to close a triangle? Well, the Rambam discusses two leading contenders that were well known in his time, and the science of his time, as we already explained, was the science of the ancient Greek philosophers. And let's look at two main contenders. Aristotle believed in a God who was eternally present, but also believed that the universe was eternally present in the form that we know of it today. In other words, the universe is static, unchanging for eternity. It was not created something from nothing. Moving on to Plato. Plato also believed in God, and in his view, the universe also was eternally present. However, as opposed to Aristotle, he believed that it was initially in some unordered primordial form, and the Creator made order and formed the universe that we know today out of this disorder. So, the universe, according to Plato, had a beginning in terms of order, but not in terms of existence. It always existed. Now, the Rambam discusses both options and points out that neither was really proven, at least in the medieval sense of a proven hypothesis, which is based on philosophy. So when the Rambam considers this possible triangle, he disqualifies it for two reasons. Number one, it was not proven, and number two, this hypothesis, which describes the universe as not having been created something from nothing, it is unchanging, internally existing. This hypothesis is inconsistent with the principle of faith that the Creator created the universe something from nothing. He then considers this other possibility to close the triangle, and this is, in his view, a serious contender. The Rambam states that if Plato's hypothesis was proven, we would be able to reconsider the meaning of the initial creation of something from nothing to really mean that Hashem created the universe out of the primordial matter that eternally existed together with Hashem. In his opinion, this would not be inconsistent with the principle of faith, quote unquote, something from nothing. It would just be a reinterpretation, fine-tuning of the meaning of creation. In this approach, creation would mean the formation of an orderly universe that we know today from the unordered primordial matter. However, after careful analysis, the Rambam concludes that Plato's hypothesis also cannot be used to close a triangle because it has not been proven. So in conclusion, he does not close the triangle and is satisfied with the traditional understanding of creation as something from nothing. Now let's fast forward about 800 years. If the Rambam would have been around in the 20th century, he would have been very excited to learn that the modern scientific method has established beyond any doubt that physical reality started with the Big Bang many billions of years ago. The Big Bang theory was first suggested in the 1920s, and by the late 1960s, enough scientific evidence was in place, leading to the conclusion that this is how the universe emerged, basically from nothing, so to speak. Rambam would have closed the triangle the way we show it here. Okay, we gained some more understanding about the word bara by applying Rambam's triangle. What else can we learn about this unique creation process? Now, the Torah does not go into detail as to how exactly our reality was created. We can state this as an important principle of Torah study, rule number 4. And this rule says, the Torah does not describe events or set down commandments and codes of behavior that do not serve to uplift the moral level of humanity in general, or the nation of Israel in particular, and I may add, by doing so, bring his creation close to him, humanity in general, and the nation of Israel in particular. So, for this reason, the Torah leaves out the unnecessary details of how this creation process unfolded. They are unnecessary because they do not serve to improve the moral and ethical codes of society. As we said in the past, the Torah is not a history book nor a science book. It is Hashem's messages and instructions to his special creation, the human being, who is called to be his partner in the creation process. Humans are blessed with high intelligence and curiosity, and are capable of filling in the scientific details that the Torah left out. But we are not done yet with the second word, bara. Let's list the 4 rules that we have seen up to now. Here they are. Our new 4th rule appears below. I would like to go back and focus on rules 2 and 3, since we can learn some new information about the Barak type of creation from these rules. Okay, let's quickly go through them again. Rule number 2, in many instances, the Torah uses the same word repeatedly to mean somewhat different things, that is, homonyms. Out of all the possible meanings, the correct meaning would be found in the teachings of Torah scholars based on the oral Torah and would also be consistent with its context in the Torah text. Rule number 3, the first appearance of any specific word in the Torah is the place where we should study this word carefully in its Torah context in order to properly understand the Torah messages that this word is conveying. Okay, so let's make a chart as we did for the first word, Bereshit. Let's make a similar chart for the word bara and apply our second and third rules to this word. Let's start with rule number 3. The first appearance is obviously in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and the meaning, as we already learned from our previous lessons, is the creation of something from nothing. Nothing means empty of our known material-based and non-material-based reality, but on the other hand, it is bursting with wisdom and intelligence of the Torah, which was in place before this creation process. Okay, let's move on now to rule number 2, which directs us to search for the other uses of the word bara. Now, a bara is found in a few places in the Torah, not too many places. I am focusing on its appearance in the first chapter of Genesis. So it appears, as we have already seen in the first verse, it appears in other 2 places when describing the creation of life. So here it appears when describing the creation of living animals, and here it appears when describing the creation of man. Now, this is an extremely important point which we need to think about. We will start now looking at this, and then we'll come back to it later when we reach these verses later on in the first chapter of Genesis that describe the creation of life. What is the basic question? We learned that the fundamental meaning of bara is something from nothing. Now, if this is the case, how can the Torah use this word to describe the creation of animal life and human life? These life forms appear in the 5th and 6th days of creation, which is already towards the end of the creation process. It was preceded by the formation of everything else in days 1 to 4. Earth, sky, sun, moon, stars, light, water, plants, and so on. So many of the created entities were already in place before the creation of life. Now, in this situation, how can the Torah now come along and say that animal life and human life is a bara type of creation? In other words, something from nothing. What makes this even more puzzling is that when we check how the Torah describes Hashem's actions when forming the other non-living entities during days 1 to 4, other words are used, not bara. Okay, so we see initially the word bara when describing the initial creation of the universe, but then in the subsequent creations of days 1 to 4, of everything that was not a life form, other words are used. Hashem said, Hashem divided, called, Hashem made. So we do not see the action bara for these non-living entities that were created. Now this makes sense, since these other entities emerged after the initial creation of something from nothing. They formed as something from something. So we would not expect Hashem's actions to be described as a bara type of creation. But when we go on to days 5 and 6, which describes the creation of life, bara reappears. Why does the Torah revert back to a bara type of creation when describing the emergence of animal life and human life, as if they appeared as something from nothing? This does not seem logical, unless we think about this a little more and set down another rule of Torah study. Every letter and every word in the Torah has significance and conveys a special message that cannot be conveyed by other words or letters. So when the Torah chooses to revert back to a bara type of creation here and here, there is a special reason for that, which we need to understand. By choosing the bara type of creation to describe the emergence of life, this word is chosen deliberately, and we are expected to apply now rule number 3, which, as we recall, is a rule which directs us to go back to the first use of this word and learn from this usage of the word what is the deep, important message of this word. The Torah is telling us, by using the words bara here and here, that the creation of life has a deep connection with the initial creation event. It is a special bara type of event that is not shared by the other creation events that we see over here that describe the emergence of non-living entities of creation. We will return to this fascinating point when we reach these verses in days 5 and 6 of the creation. We will also look at the contemporary scientific explanations, well accepted, proven scientific explanations that are based on evolution. Let's just say for now that the Torah is informing us of something very significant that requires our attention. There is something very special about the creation of life, some deep connection to the Torah wisdom and intelligence that was in place before the creation. Okay, let's finish up with a summary of what we learned about the bara type of creation. Number 1, it is a special process that is described as something from nothing. Nothing means a state that on one hand is void of our reality, but on the other hand is bursting with the infinite wisdom and intelligence of the Torah. The bara creation can only emerge from this Bereshit state, which is a state of Torah, intelligence, and wisdom. The proven scientific principle that describes the physical aspects of this momentous event is known as the Big Bang. Bara does not appear when describing subsequent steps of creation in days 1 to 4, where non-living entities emerge. Other descriptive words are used. However, it does reappear in days 5 to 6 when describing the creation of life and humans. By doing so, the Torah is informing us that the creation of life in general and humans in particular share a deep connection to the initial bara creation, not shared by the other non-living entities. Okay, that's all for now. Shalom, shalom.